Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to the Inside Strategic Coach podcast with Dan Sullivan. Dan, today we're going to talk about something that you have been talking about in our 10 Times Ambition program, which is really fun because we like to be playful in our approach to things, called 1,000 Who'd Up Hours. So what exactly is 1,000 Who'd Up Hours? Why is it important?
Well, just to give the context, we've had a great breakthrough in the program period, Shannon, over the last 12 months, and it has to do with the concept of who, not how. It has to do with entrepreneurs setting goals and then procrastinating on carrying out their goals. And what we've said is that your procrastination is actually a wisdom that tells you that the goal of something bigger and better is actually great and that should be achieved. You're just not the one to actually provide the how to do it. So you should use procrastination as a sign that immediately you're the one to define the what of the goal and the why of the goal, but the actual who should do the work to get the goal achieved and to provide the how is in the hands of your team or people outside your company. And this has been great. This has been a huge breakthrough. It's one of those things when I do the little diagram that goes along with who, not how, everybody just gets it. Not just entrepreneurs in the Strategic Coach program, but anybody in my life where I say, the goal is great, but you're not the who should do the how. And it's been just a remarkable concept, and it just keeps producing new dimensions. So one of the dimensions is actually the achievement on my part of a goal that I've had for 29 years since we first started Strategic Coach. And I've had a goal that in all the workshops, we would have a common goal for everybody in the workshop. So everybody coming back after 90 days of individual personal work out in the world, there would be a project that we would all have. And I could never figure out how you could have a common goal for entrepreneurs because everybody's so unique. They come from different industries. They're at different places in their career, and everything is unique about entrepreneurs. So how do you get a common goal among, in my case, 40 or 50 individuals who are very unique in where they're coming from, where they're at, and where they're going? It struck me with the who, not how concept that we could create a goal of 1,000 Who'd Up Hours, which we've now established throughout the 10 Times program. So we now have over 500 entrepreneurs who are very, very successful, very talented, very ambitious, but they have a common goal that we can talk about. So it's a fantastic concept, and everybody's been so excited about it. And that was over the last quarter that we actually established this. And now every quarter, we're going to measure each person's progress in whoing up. So whoing up means it's sort of like freeing up, but here you found who are now doing your existing how so that you have 1,000 hours back to actually do bigger and better things.
I love the term Who'd Up Hours, first of all, because it makes me smile every single time I hear it. But the other thing is the whole expression itself just gives direction about how to increase your freedom. And that's where people get stuck so much. Is like, okay, just say 1,000 freed up hours. People are like, ah. But if you say a Who'd Up Hours, you're like, oh yeah, that actually tells you how to go about doing it. So what difference will it make, Dan, if our clients or anyone else listening today actually embraces this idea of 1,000 Who'd Up Hours? What impact will that have?
Well, first of all, we treat it like a strategy circle. So anyone who remembers a strategy circle, you have a goal, and then you pick a point in the future when the full results are in. So there's a deadline, and our brains respond to two things. They respond to deadlines and measurements. So in the first half of the exercise, I get everyone to say, okay, there's a point in the future where you now have 1,000 hours back, freed up, who'd up, from what you're doing right now. And everybody's going to have a different date in the future when this is true. For example, mine will happen in the beginning, right at the beginning of 2023. I will have who'd myself up 1,000 hours from what I'm doing right now. And then what we do is we spend a considerable amount of time. What would you do with the who'd up hours? And this is the difference in freedom between the concept of freedom from and freedom to. So in order to get clearer about what you need to be freed up from, who'd up from right now, what would you be who'd up to do? So I'll give you a goal is that I want to who myself up from everything in Strategic Coach over the next 4 years except the Game Changer program. So I want to jump. So in 2013, I who'd myself up from all other programs, Signature, Master's program, to actually just focus on the 10 times program. So 4 more years, I will who myself up from the 10 times ambition program, and then I'll spend all my time just with the Game Changer program. And I've done this throughout Strategic Coach. Every 5, 6, 7 years, I take a jump to a next higher level. And in my case, one of my big goals is that I'll have 20 who's who each collectively, my 20 who's will complete 50 projects a year to be decided, projects in the future. And every year over a 25-year period from that point forward, 50 projects will be done, and there'll be more powerful projects every year, greater productivity, greater creativity, greater results. I'm in love with that idea, and it adds up to 1,000 hours. So we had every single entrepreneur in the 10 times program say what you would do with the who'd up hours. And in some cases, it was 300 or 400 hours of free time with their families and with their personal interests. And I said, that's great. Entrepreneurs are 360-degree creatures. We don't have a dividing line between our business life and our personal life. And it's all a gain of freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, freedom of purpose, which is really the 4 freedoms in Strategic Coach. And then we have everybody in the Strategic Coach, the 10 times workshop, they talk about this, quite extensively so that they're really locked in, that intellectually they're totally engaged with it, emotionally they're totally committed with it. And then we come back and say, okay, so where are these 1,000 hours going to come from? And they identify in their present circumstances how they're occupied right now, and they have to take from a whole bunch of activities that add up to 1,000 hours. And then the final stage, so you have the strategy circle of the results and the deadline, then you come back. And the obstacles are now just how your time is taken up now. So you have to transform how your time is being used right now. And then the whole question in the middle then is, how does this actually happen? And it can't be you doing it. It has to be who's doing it. So you have to pick upwards of 5 who's now who have to free you up so that you can get the 1,000 who'd up hours. So, it's really interesting because a lot of people don't know this, but the birthplace of the Strategic Coach program is really the Strategy Circle, which goes back to July of 1982. I've kind of identified when I came up with that strategy circle, and that is the single most transformative thinking process of my entire life. And if you take any concept we have in the Strategic Coach program and you check its genealogy backwards, it's like Ancestry.com, and you go back to the ancestry of almost any concept in the program, it's that strategy circle formula of you have a vision, you have obstacles to the vision, you transform your understanding of the obstacle, and then there's action. But we have the added advantage now, 30 years later, 36 years later, we have the advantage that the actual transformation is in the form of some who is going to actually undertake your project and actually complete it for you. So in my case, it only takes about 65 hours for me to actually put in the hands of a team of who's to actually take 1,000 hours from one part of my work life and apply them to 1,000 other hours. And mine doesn't include free time because Babs and I really had that handled back in the 1980s. We've always taken the equivalent of 22 weeks off a year. But we've grown tremendously. from that to prove the point that more free time actually allows you to multiply your time. So that's the overall concept. Now, I'm between launching this as we're having this podcast, Shannon. I'm in the quarter, I'm in that period before we come back, and now we'll start seeing the results. And every quarter, we get out the original game plan for everybody on how they're going to do that, and then they reflect on progress. And in the 10 times program, I have an expectation that in the first 12 months, everybody's going to whoo up at least 250 hours of the total. I had one person who reported after 3 or 4 weeks that it's already underway. The 1,000 will be hooed up in the first 12 months. So you'll get lead dogs with us who run ahead, and that's going to be an inspiration and, a bit of a prod to everybody else. And then everybody's going to share the different methods they're using, and other people are going to show their solutions here. So the 10 times program is just exploding in different dimensions of how entrepreneurs are actually hooing themselves up.
Well, I think it's really powerful that there is that common project that all very diverse, unique individual entrepreneurs can participate in, and then share, as you said, all the winning strategies, how to make this happen, what the who's actually look like, how do you find them. The thing that also strikes me is the number is not a small number.
It's half. I mean, for most entrepreneurs, it's nearing half of their annual, especially if they're taking good free time. It's probably, 2,000 hours is probably pretty good. Some are less, some are more. But if you do 1,000, it's usually about half of what you're doing right now.
Well, and what I've noticed with our clients is it actually takes that big a number to get them to think exponentially rather than incrementally.
Yes.
But giving directions to how it's going to happen with the who, I think is quite profound. And sometimes we just need that much, much, much bigger target. And again, you can set the time frame. Yours is 2023 for by when you want to do this. But if anyone's feeling stuck, if anyone's feeling plateaued, this is a major kick in the rear end.
Well, it's freedom. I mean, it's really freedom. And I go back to a contention that I have of what motivates entrepreneurs. And everybody who's not an entrepreneur looks in from the outside and they say, well, entrepreneurs are just about money. But money is just a means to create freedom, that bigger and better goals require greater and greater freedom to actually pull them off. But the other thing that I'm working against here is the notion that you delegate everything and then you don't do anything. And that's not really the game plan for strategic coach entrepreneurs. It's to get to a higher level of aspiration, a higher level of creativity and productivity, and a higher level of results. And I can speak honestly about this, and I think I'm a bit of a role model. At 74, my goals are much bigger than they were when I was 54, when I was 44, way, way beyond what I'm aspiring to do entrepreneurially in the future after 74 is incredibly greater than anything that I had up until 74.
And you're also not getting away from any of the things. You are a how in a certain realm, right, for people.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. It's actually how you expand. Our other terminology for that is unique ability and that contribution. And then I think, as you've talked about in our last book, which is my plan for living to 156, getting out of the way and supporting other people to do everything else that needs to get done. So that's really powerful. So you have an even more powerful, expanded game plan for how you're going to be a who for people. And then you're just surrounded by this incredible talent to help you manifest some even better goals.
It's as much a learning experience for me as the coach of the 10 times ambition program. And quite frankly, one of the key factors that will allow me to who up my hours is that I have other coaches who are coaching the 10 times program, because I'm moving on after 2022. I'm moving on to the Game Changer program entirely. So I feel so gratified. I have to tell you, Shannon, that once I got this, I've been working on this for 29 years and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And it was the emergence of the who, not how concept, which allowed me to, first of all, just communicate how this could be done. And everybody, all 500 plus 10 times entrepreneurs, they immediately got it. I didn't have to spend a lot of time explaining what the vehicle was here. You have to find the who's. who will now do half of your house right now so that you have half your time back at some point in the future. And then every year after that, it's not just that there's a year when you get 1,000. It's every year for the rest of your life after that point. And you'll probably do it again. We'll, having done it right now and get the first 1,000, then you'll fill it up with higher level activities. And then you'll get to another point 5 years, 10 years down the road where you free yourself up again of 1,000, who yourself up of another 1,000. So that's my report.
I love it. Well, thank you, Dan. I think you've left it very, very clear how people can take action on this idea. You walked them through the whole exercise. So thank you. I'm looking forward to...
Yeah, and if anybody in the Signature Master's program has been wondering, what do you get in the 10 times program? That's not in the rest of the program. I just gave you a huge payoff.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Inside Strategic Coach podcast. If there's someone in your life or your network who could really benefit from what you've learned today, why not share this episode with them? You can be a hero today just by clicking share.